I went out on a date with a guy one time. He said, what do you do for a living? I said, I'm a negotiator. And I didn't tell him exactly like how that plays out in real life. I was just like, yeah, that's what I do. And he's like, oh, okay. So that's how you make the big bucks, huh? And I was like, I guess you could say that. And then a couple days later, we're on the phone. He's like, hey, how was your day? I'm like, it was good. And we're just chatting. And he's like, I feel like I really have to be careful around you. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, because you're a negotiator. He's like, I'm trying to be very mindful of the things that I say. I was like, well, how perceptive of you? And then I'm thinking to myself, well, that was an interesting card that you just played.
Are you sure?
Okay, yeah, I'm never gonna be doing that again anytime soon. Alright, lady, let's just go ahead and pretend that what you're talking about actually really happened, and this guy is not wrong. You're a modern woman, so therefore you base your entire personality on your career. Now, modern women are notorious for using every single thing a man uses against him without reading him his proper Miranda rights. And when we take into account that you make your living picking apart what people say, yeah, he has to be careful, and he's just addressing his concerns. But when we also factor in that you're a modern woman, you are looking for red flags that aren't really there. And what do you do the second he addresses his concerns? Well, you immediately judge him for it and completely disregard everything he has to say. Modern dating is already an infinite minefield of red flags and taking things out of context that when we throw a professional negotiator into the mix, yeah, it makes things 10 billion times worse. I mean, you're already proving it right now, sister. This guy made an innocuous comment and you're already making him sound like he's the scum of the earth.
Because the negotiator never shuts off, okay? It's the way I think. It's the way I see the world. It's the way I hear information. I'm discerning. And I said, well, what makes you think that saying that to me was a wise thing to do? He's like, I don't know. I just have to watch what I'm saying around you. And I was like, well, why is it so hard for you to watch what you say around me? Is there something that you're trying not to do? Is there some version of yourself you're trying not to show me? I mean, just by stating that, now I have 5 backup questions for you. Then I ask him a direct question, and you know what he does? He hedges me. And what is a hedge? It's that thing that people do where they don't actually answer your question, but it's a very simple question to answer.
Aren't you lying? No. In fact, aren't you a liar? No more questions, Your Honor.
Whoa, woman, I find it awfully telling that this very simple question of yours is not going to be stated for the rest of us to know, and that's because the question itself wasn't simple and was probably incredibly snarky. And this guy probably didn't know how to respond because the question was incredibly stupid and had no direct answer. And let's say for the sake of argument that you did ask him a simple question, it doesn't matter because you've already got it in your head that no matter how he answers, it will always be wrong. And I find it kind of difficult how you can say that he's not being truthful with you when you won't even state what the original question was. Instead, it sounds like you're doing this hedging thing where you're just tossing a word salad while providing nothing of actual substance. And when we throw that particular thing into the mix, I call your ability to be a successful professional negotiator into question because you are focusing so much energy on your own personal sense of self-sabotage. And I personally feel sorry for the company that hired you because you are clearly god-awful when it comes to negotiating deals.
So I asked another question that was exactly the same question, but 5 degrees of north. We just shifted the question a little bit. You know what he did? He hedged me again. So this happened 3 times in a row. And I just said, have you recognized that you have switched your position 3 different times in less than 5 minutes? Yeah. Okay, I think we're done here. Truth is succinct, bullshit is long. It has never failed me. Not answering very simple questions, red flag. That was easier than I thought.
You might want to take a look at that rule book of yours, woman, because what you're talking about is a recipe for complete and utter disaster. Your incredibly unnecessary line of combative questioning caught this guy off guard, left him confused, and was wondering what he did wrong. So yeah, his answers may be a little bit different, but that's only because any answer he gives, you won't accept. You already decided the second he made that statement that he wasn't good enough for you, and you were just looking for that little extra excuse to justify your destructive behavior. You can't help yourself. You're a modern woman. Self-destruction is part and parcel of what you do. So how's this for a negotiation? How about you turn off your camera, put down your phone, and shut your mouth for 20 minutes. And in return, us self-respecting men will leave you alone and never talk to you again. I think that's a fair deal.
I'll make that deal.
You know what? Maybe I should become a professional negotiator guy, dude thing. I think I got a future in it now that I think about it. I mean, when I listen to this woman, how hard could it possibly be? I've only struck one deal and it took me 5 seconds, and I'm already significantly better than this broad.
I don't blame you. Damn good deal.
I want to take a second to give the warmest of heartfelt welcomes to Funky here, the newest member of the Bounty Board over on Patreon. Sir, welcome. Thank you so much for your support. And I have it on good authority that the intergalactic space god Clacknomacard, all hail, is adding you onto his holiday postcard mailing list as we speak. And thank you to the fine members of the Bounty Board over on Patreon for supporting the channel and keeping these videos rolling out on a regular basis. Gentlemen and gents, thank you so much for your support. It means the entirety of the cosmos to me. All hail! And if you're interested in supporting the channel, check out the Bounty Board over on Patreon, where $5 a month can get you access to exclusive content you're not going to find anywhere else. You'll also get a personalized shout out from yours truly and a permanent producer credit on the Bounty Board. I post twice a week on there, so go ahead and check it out. It's a great way to support the channel at a low price. The link is in the pinned comment down below.
My ex cheated on me with his ex, so I made him believe that I was unalive. So about 6 months ago, my ex left me for, let's take a guess, his ex-girlfriend. Now mind you, this is the ex that he would always talk trash about every time he could. You should always be wary of if your boyfriend talks trash about his exes, because I think that that's the biggest warning sign. If they're still talking about them, they still have feelings for them. Just the way in which he broke up with me to get to his ex is evil. He just blocked me out of nowhere. Now, I knew he would come back because they always do.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Lady, I'm gonna get to your incredibly unacceptable behavior in just a second, but I did want to say something first about how this guy apparently ghosted you out of quote-unquote nowhere. That's not how things work in this world, sweetheart. If this guy ghosted you, he most likely had a good reason. It typically falls into one of two categories. The first is basic Chadnomics. You were never his boyfriend. He was pumping and dumping you until someone better came along. And then he ghosted you just because it was easier. The second reason, if he ghosted you, then that is because you were making his life a living hell and he didn't want to deal with you anymore. It's not evil. It's the precedent that you set back when you had value on the dating market. You were ghosting guys left and right in your early 20s, but when it happens to you, it is somehow an affront to humanity and considered to be unforgivably evil, so you come up with this incredibly diabolical scheme to get back at him, which was completely unnecessary, mean-spirited, and it kinda shows that you might be a psychotic.
I didn't try to get in contact with him or anything because I was accepting it. Oh, by the way, I found out he was with his ex because a friend of mine told me, because I asked her to check his Instagram for me. But yeah, found that out and didn't say anything, and I was really depressed. But I waited because I knew he was gonna come back, and he does. And I knew exactly what I was gonna do when he were to come back. He unblocks me. Finally, after 6 months, he finally does. Now my revenge was, I'm going to make him feel the guiltiest he can ever possibly feel. So I'm gonna pretend I am unalive.
Whoa, that was harsh.
Woman, that is incredibly messed up on so many degrees, I don't even know where to start. You talk about revenge as if this guy somehow betrayed you on some type of a massive level when all he did was break up with you. And then you took 6 months to conjure up this plan to try to make this guy feel as guilty as possible by pretending that you gave up the mortal coil. Who does that? You clearly never got over this relationship, because if you did, you'd actually move on like a normal person, but you clearly couldn't. So you conjure up this stupid scheme of yours just to get back at him, and that kind of stuff can have some significant real-world consequences to that guy's life. Now, we're missing a boatload of context here because this guy's ex could have been toxic and manipulative, and he may have genuinely made a mistake by going back to her, but you are so focused with trying to get some payback that you're not even willing to hear him out. You immediately resort to something that a sociopath would do, and there you sit thinking that you're some type of a boss babe when you're really just sick.
He sends me an apology text And I replied to him pretending I'm my sister, telling him, well, me, is unalive. He calls immediately and I tell him as my sister, can't pick up, don't want to talk to you. You were part of the reason why this happened, so yeah. Told him, well, I'm going to send you a box with your stuff that you left with her. I had a box with his stuff that I had never had the opportunity to give back to him. So my sister was telling him that she was gonna mail them to his house. And in that box was a goodbye letter from me. If he does find out that I'm alive through this video, hi, how are you? I hate you.
You! I will think of you as I throw up into the toilet.
You know, you could have just picked up the phone, told this guy to screw off and moved on with your life, but we all know that you're incapable of doing that because you're a psycho. You had this hyperfixation on trying to make this guy feel bad that it completely consumed your life to the point where you needed this guy to think that you were 6 feet under. You completely ruined this guy's life. You gave this guy the impression that you ended your own life because of him, and that is going to completely change him and who he is as a person. You gave this man the impression that he is responsible for the death of another human being, and that's gonna weigh heavily on his conscience for the rest of his life, but you don't care. You actually need to have one of those in order for that to happen. And it's actually rather disgusting how you're sitting there proud of yourself over this when all you've done is something that is completely sick, twisted, and totally uncalled for. And that's because you live your life focusing on trying to make everyone else feel bad just so you don't have to feel worse. Go to hell, woman.
I'll see you in hell.
My therapist taught me this analogy that I think about every single day. If we are living in a house that has no food, there's no food in the kitchen, no food in like the pantry, the fridge, the cupboards are completely empty. And we live there and a man comes to the door, or whoever you are romantically interested in, and has a really fresh, hot, delicious box of pizza. And he's like, hey, I have this pizza for you. Do you want it? And you're starving and you're like, yes, thank you so much. I'm so hungry. I need the pizza. And he's like, okay, well, the catch is I get to come in as well with the pizza. And you're like, okay, I'm literally starving. Like, I'll take whatever. Just get in here. Like, I need to eat that pizza.
Pizza man, extra sausage.
Oh, your therapist told you this. Well, then it must be good advice because as we all know, every single therapist that caters to the modern woman is always a font of perpetual wisdom. Now, I'm already starting to see flaws in this metaphor because, well, let's just be real here. If a man is showing up with a pizza and you let him in, you're the one who made that decision. And the types of men who are actually doing that know that's what you're looking for and you'll let them in every single time. And that's because your quest for external validation will always supersede your ability to be able to feed yourself. You're single and over the age of 30, so therefore you think that men were put on this earth to take care of you because you clearly are incapable of taking care of yourself. And you've already made it clear you don't care who this guy is, just so long as it's any guy and he's willing to give you something. But I hate to break it to you, sister, Chad is not a pizza delivery guy. He owns the pizza joint. Get used to it.
Versus if you have a fully stocked kitchen, fridge is full, pantry's full, cupboards are full, you have so much food in your house, and if somebody comes to the door with a pizza and they're like, hey, do you want this pizza? And you're like, yeah, thanks, like that smells delicious. And they're like, okay, well, I get to come in too. And then you're like, okay, actually, I'm not interested. Like, I have food inside. I don't need the pizza that bad, so no thank you. And then you don't invite them in. The whole point of this analogy is in dating, when you have basically empty reserves of like self-love, confidence, self-worth, you are starving and desperate, and so you will take anybody that comes to your door with pizza.
Nice try.
All right, sister, let's go ahead and take this metaphor and put a more realistic spin on it. It doesn't matter if your fridge is full or your pantry is well stocked because you wouldn't even know what to do with those items thanks to your inability to be able to cook. And yes, I'm being literal and metaphorical with that statement. Even if you have all of these lovely food items, you're going to do nothing with them because at the end of the day, feasting on DoorDash is a hell of a lot easier than doing anything for yourself. And since we're sticking with the food metaphor here, let's just go ahead and think about the excuses you make up every every single time you order out. You do it because it is easier than cooking your own food. You do it because every single night that you order, it's because you just don't feel like cooking. And that's made all the more easier when you have a guy that's willing to order the food for you. So when given the choice between preparing your own food or having someone else do it for you, you'll always choose the latter. And you're still going to be relying on other people to feed you, even though you may be capable of feeding yourself. But at the end of the day, I am terrified to eat anything that you might prepare in that kitchen of yours.
Anybody that's coming to your door to offer you what you don't already have, whether it's like acceptance, love, self-worth, whatever, you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll take whatever other garbage you have because that pizza, I need it so bad or I'm gonna die. Versus when you have worked on yourself, done all the healing work, whatever you need to do to like fill up your coffers, if you will, and like your pantry's full, your fridge is full, then when somebody comes to the door and you're like, yeah, that pizza smells really good, but all the other garbage, like, it's just not worth it. Like, I'm actually good. I'm not gonna starve to death without you. So you are better equipped to like reject garbage, basically. And so I thought I'd share because it is a bummer that my therapy sessions are not nationally televised for everyone to learn.
This sucks. Change it.
If your therapy sessions were nationally televised, then that show would get canceled before the first season even reached its first conclusion. It's clear to everyone that you've done absolutely no work on yourself, and you're relying on this therapist to fix you even though they are failing at their job. Which, to be fair, is unsurprising. A therapist that caters to modern women is more interested in seeing you for regular sessions than they are in actually seeing you put in any work to move on with your life. And lady, if that therapist had any kids, you would be putting them through college. Let's just think about this for a second. Even if you did have a pantry stocked and someone shows up with a pizza, you'll choose the pizza because the pizza tastes better and you get more enjoyment out of it. Just think about how many times you try to suppress your feelings by eating junk food. You can't help yourself. The second you get a whiff of that pizza's cologne, you completely forget about every single false item that's in that pantry of yours. And that's what happens when you spend your prime years feasting on pizza instead of actually learning any type of valuable skill.
These braised short ribs taste like a dog's asshole.
One of my least favorite questions that I get whenever I talk about decentering men is when women are like, okay, well, I can't find a man if I decenter them. If I don't like really give them attention and if I don't lower my standards, then how am I supposed to be with a man? That's the point, babe. Like, the point is you decenter men so that you only want to be with men. You only want to invest your time and energy into men that are like actively adding to your life, okay? Because when you start to decenter men, you realize that a lot of the times, in order to keep a man, all you have to do as a woman is lower your standards. Most of the time, women that are in relationships with men are arguing and fighting with them because they're trying to get the man to change and to do better, to go back to the honeymoon phase when he was still trying to impress her, when he was still trying to get access to her body. They are longing for that performance from a man. That's what it is. It's a performance, okay?
You dumb bastard.
All right, gentlemen and gents, place your bets. We are now taking wagers on how many cats that this woman owns. I'm gonna go with a solid 3 because you can never go wrong with prime numbers. Your gibberish is completely pointless because even when you talk about quote-unquote decentering men, all you're doing is focusing on men. Every single thing you do in this quest is in hopes of finding the perfect guy. It has absolutely nothing to do with self-improvement as much as it is increasing the amount of delusion that you are entitled to perfection. I mean, you said it yourself. You're looking for a guy to keep you in a perpetual honeymoon phase, and when that doesn't happen, then it's automatically the guy's fault and you need to choose better, when in reality, the honeymoon phase is called a honeymoon phase because it is not supposed to last very long. There is not a single man on this planet that's going to make you feel madly in love with him for every single day of your life. It's just not possible. The human brain doesn't work that way, but there I go using intelligence again. I keep forgetting you're immune to such things.
They are driven by their hormones and the desire to see you naked. And once they get that, most of them are not actually serious about being in relationships with you, okay? And that can be a tough pill to swallow, but once you swallow it, you're free, okay? You can deal with men and engage with them when they're on their best behavior. You know exactly what motivates them, and then you can also educate yourself on the psychology of men so that you can be in healthier relationships with them, just in general, okay? Because you are no longer expecting something from them that most of them are not capable of. And I don't think that that is an inherently bad thing. That's just reality. Like, you don't need to moralize this truth. You just need to accept it.
Sweet. You couldn't ignore me if you tried.
Have you actually taken 5 seconds out of your life to think that maybe the chads that you have been constantly chasing are only interested in your body because that's all you have to offer? If you really haven't, then you probably should. It's not like you don't have the spare time or anything. The majority of self-respecting men out there are looking for the same thing. They are looking for a friendly, kind, peaceful woman who's going to add on to his life. We're not that complicated. And personally, I almost find it impressive that you've been able to ignore these voices, even though this has been coming from the mouths of millions of men for the last couple of decades. But that's because if a man is happy, then you're somehow unhappy, as if he's leeching the life out of you, and that's not how it works. It's called a relationship for a reason. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter, because in your eyes, it's a man's job to make you happy 100% of the time, and if he doesn't, then he's just a piggish liar who's only interested in sleeping with you. And trust me, sister, nothing could be further from the truth. None of us are that desperate.
Recognizing that there are so many other options for how you live your life and from where you can create contentment and happiness without suffering and crying and throwing up every day over a guy who is just around because you won't leave. You know, I think that's very freeing. The whole point of decentering men is that you no longer need to live your life thinking that you have to impress them or that they are a prize. Your happiness and your contentment is the prize. It's not even about women being the prize either. Your happiness, your well-being, your health, your financial stability, your creativity, your will to live, that is the prize, okay? Your contribution to your community, to the world around you, you living up to your full potential. That is the prize, okay? And most of the time, when you are trying to get a man to take you seriously, that requires you to lower your standards. That requires you to give up energy that could be used for all those other things.
Women should stay home and make babies.
Alright, so I have a question. What's wrong with lowering your standards? The high standards that you set for yourself are what makes you miserable. I mean, think about it. You're constantly alone, you're profoundly bitter, and you're miserable. You're not actually contributing anything of worth to society because you're too busy sitting around moping and watching reality television. And ignoring men isn't going to change that because you've been doing that for the last 30 years. And you're going to sit there and tell me that never once in your entire life that you never had to make any form of compromises whatsoever? Yeah, nice try, lady. Even if you were capable of this decentering men garbage, you'll never actually do it. Every single time that Chad, Tyrone, Raphael, Marco, Chang, Wang, Takeda, or Vladimir hits you up with a WYD text, you're immediately going to throw the whole decentering men thing out the window because this time you're gonna tell yourself that it's gonna be different. But it never will, sister. You're incapable of actually feeling anything other than pure misery. And that is going to do it for today's video, gentlemen and gents. And as always, if you find that my particular brand of comedy is bringing you to the brink of laughter, then why don't you scroll on down and click that like and subscribe button, ring the notification bell, leave a couple of comments, and make sure to share this video so we can give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for checking out the new video, gentlemen and gents, and until next time, peace out, homies.